Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest. Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
What's up? What is up? I'm your host, Elia Einhorn. Welcome back to the Talkhouse Podcast. This week I'm joined from Chicago by
Josh Modell, executive editor. What's up, Elia?
Hey, man. We have a very cool show for you today, listeners. Legendary producer and the drummer for Garbage, Butch Vig, with Silversun Pickups frontman, Brian Aubert. Josh, you got a super early taste of the record these guys have been working on together. How did that come about?
It's funny, I was at Vig's home studio in Silver Lake for a different Talkhouse piece, and before we got started talking about that, he said, I gotta play you something that I'm working on right now, and it happened to be a track from Widow's Weeds, the newest Silversun Pickups record, and he was super psyched.
Yeah, you can tell these guys have a lot of love for each other's work. Now, Josh, I'm not gonna lie, it's very fucking cool that you were in Butch Vig's studio. This guy is an absolute legend.
Yeah, it was super cool. I was a little intimidated, but as a fellow Wisconsinite, I knew he would be very mellow and very cool, which he absolutely was.
Did he offer you cheese curds?
There were no cheese curds. He did have a plate of Johnsonville brats handy, though. No, that's not true.
Well, of course, Butch has produced some of rock's landmark records.
Yeah, he's certainly best known for producing a little record called Nevermind by a band called Nirvana.
Heard of it?
But of course, before that, the reason Nirvana got turned on to him was that he did early Killdozer and DeKreutzen records for Touch and Go. He was really well known for that. He, of course, did Gish, Siamese Dream, and Melancholy for Smashing Pumpkins. He did work with Sonic Youth and Against Me and Green Day.
Even Depeche Mode.
And then, of course, like triple, quadruple threat, he started Garbage in the early 90s, and that band has sold 17 million records.
It's amazing. And they're still going strong. We actually had frontwoman Shirley Manson speaking with Tori Amos on the podcast when Garbage's 2016 record, Strange Little Birds, dropped.
An excellent conversation that everyone should check out right away.
After this one.
Of course.
And there's some new music coming from them, I think.
Yeah, they're working on a new record to be released in 2020.
Well, let's give a listen to a track from Strange Little Birds. Here's the song, Empty. That band is awesome. That drummer is sick.
Sounds like Garbage, which in this case I mean as a high compliment.
Now, Josh, I can see how Silversun Pickups were probably pretty big fans of Garbage.
Definitely. And I think you can hear a Smashing Pumpkins influence as well, which I guess by extension is a Butch Vig influence.
Totally. Now, Silversun Pickups is an indie outfit coming out of Los Angeles. Their debut record, Carnivas, did really well back in 2006. That was propelled by the fantastic single Lazy Eye.
Great song.
Silversun Pickups is comprised of Brian Aubert on lead vocals and guitar, Nikki Moninger on bass and backing vocals, Joe Lester plays keys and a bunch of other instruments, and Chris Guanlau plays drums. The band's newest release, as you mentioned, Josh, is Widow's Weeds. It's their 5th LP and just dropped earlier this year.
Yeah, it feels great. It's got a little more strings. It's a little more kind of warm and confident and less oblique maybe than their past records. It's really good.
From Widow's Weeds, let's check out the newest single, It Doesn't Matter Why.
And if it all goes right, seeing our eyes, if I made it out alive, will you wait for our sight? Stand to have some peace of mind. Wait.
A great sound, and listeners, you're going to hear a lot about those strings in this conversation. You know, this whole talk really is a lot of shop talk. It's the guys getting into the nitty-gritty of writing, recording, arranging, doing press, and touring, what it's really like to be an active band member and producer.
Yeah, I think it'll be super interesting for other musicians to listen to this one. Butch talks about Garbage's process and how they deal with journalists, how they hype themselves up before shows, and how they work in the studio. It's really good stuff.
I was surprised how comfortable he was pulling back the curtain on that. That was so cool to hear. And Brian gets into how this new record came together, shares his recording philosophies, lessons from the road. We even get some riffs on an acoustic guitar as he and Butch chat.
Yeah, that's some exclusive audio only on Talkhouse.
We also hear about a German journalist being a bit too honest.
Butch's psychic connection with his engineer, Billy Bush. Not that one Billy Bush, a different Billy Bush.
Thank God. Brian's reason for having lots of guests in the studio.
And Butch gives advice on how to keep your band together for the long haul. And he knows.
He knows.
Check it out.
Brian,
Hi, Butch.
how are you?
You're Butch Vig.
This is Butch Vig, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
Oh, I'm glad.
With some noodling in the background.
I'm Brian Aubert from Silversun Pickups. Do you know this thing right here, Butch? It was one of my favorite moments on this record that we made. By the way, happy record release day.
That's the end of Chameleons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where but you can do the down thing, slide down.
Yeah, so my favorite thing was expressing this to you guys. And everybody looking at me with all the serious, like I was playing the Disney Hall. And I kept going. And I think you were a little like, okay. And then eventually,
Eventually you ran out of frets. So let me ask you this. You just came in, literally from a show last night.
Las
right?
Vegas. Yeah, we're in Los Angeles right now.
So let me ask you this. How many new songs did you play? I know the record's not out quite yet, but...
That show we only played 4. We have 7 we can play now.
Oh, cool.
And we're gonna rehearse again to get the other 3. But since that was a radio show, it was a smaller time, and it's a radio show, so you sort of do a different thing.
Yeah.
The other shows we were doing 6.
Oh, wow. Cool.
We had a 7th ready to go, but it was hard because our songs are long, and there were some deep dives that we wanted to put back in.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to find, as you probably know, in many a garbage show, I mean, you want to play songs that people know, and then you want to play some deeper cuts for some of,
Yep.
and then you want to represent a lot of the new stuff too. So just finding that balance was interesting.
Yeah,
So we kind of dipped into the records and did a little deep cut onto some songs that we missed playing, haven't heard in a while. And then we played 6. You want to know what those 6?
I do, because I haven't seen
Widow's Weeds was the 7th, but we didn't get around to it. But we played it at an acoustic charity thing. Yeah.
Cool.
How'd they sound? They're getting there, Butch.
Yeah, well, no, I'm just, because they're brand new songs. And as you know, when you're in the studio, you have an approach. And then when you go out live, the songs take on a completely different life.
It's a different mechanical thing. And for us, it's almost like the output feels the same, but how we get to that is the thing that we're trying to conquer.
Yeah.
I'm feeling some of the songs are starting to sit in. They're starting to feel like they're just coming out. Some of them are starting to, like Nikki and I have played acoustic now for a while with these songs, and so the first couple of and as you know, right, live is how you really do it. You can rehearse all day long, but start playing those shows, and that'll get the cobwebs.
And then you finish the tour and you
can play them better.
Damn, we should have done this in the studio because now we figured out how to really play the song. We do that all the time in garbage.
Yeah.
It's, we write in the studio, much like you did this record. And like I said, the songs take on a new life, and then you have to sort of just make your peace with it because, if we only had changed the bridge, it could have been better, or what we're doing live is better now.
I like what you're proposing, and I think this is an interesting idea. Do you think...
Go back and re-record and remix sections of the record.
Or should the duality of a band's life be perform a bunch of songs for 2 years and then release the record as that, and then move on to new songs, and then you tour them? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like a stand-up comic?
Yeah. I talked to someone last year who wanted to make a record.
What's his name? What was it?
I shouldn't say who it is because they
What does
still
it
might
rhyme
do
with?
it.
Schmadio bed.
Yeah. and rehearse for 2 months and then play a show, and that would be the album. You would stream it live and record it and put it out instantly. So
wow, that's
so that's it. All the flaws, all the mistakes.
I like that.
Yeah, no. And that would be the first performance too. You wouldn't do like 10 warm-up shows. So that'd be a lot of pressure,
We definitely, that would be a lot of pressure. I understand that whole live is live thing. Like, do you guys, Garbage, ever, when you do television and things like that, do you go, when they offer you to go and listen and check it out? We don't.
I don't want to hear it either.
Ever.
No,
Ever.
no, because
Never.
I get hypercritical.
Yeah, I'm never going to be like satisfied. So I just go, well, whatever happened, happened.
Yeah.
And then you move on.
I did early on, like some of the TV shows, and I basically go turn the guitars up 5 dB.
Yeah, because they should listen to you.
Because it was snare drum and Shirley's vocal. And
Yeah.
like the music, you can barely hear it. I could just bring all the music up about 5 dB and it'll sound closer to what we sound like live.
Yeah. I mean, for you, I can imagine that being like, oh man, this doesn't sound, because you have that sound ear of yours.
Yeah, we'd be in Germany someplace and we'd do a TV show. They go, oh, Mr. Vig, you want to come back and listen? I go, not really.
Yeah.
And they were all like waiting for me to say some sort of thing, So
Profound Vigism.
I did that 2 or 3 times, maybe actually quite a bit, I guess, on the very first tour we did. But then I stopped doing it because it's no fun.
No.
Okay, how much time do you have? You really want to get into this?
Yeah, Nikki and I do a lot of promo and radio stuff, and they always go, "Oh, you want to hear it back?" They'll play it. We're like, "No, we lived it. Like, it happened, and like warts and all." And I believe in that because there is something to me, a too well-oiled machine, and that doesn't move the needle for me. Now, luckily, I don't think we could even possibly be one just because of the nature of how we operate as a band. But I do think those little things, I don't know, just let you know that this is human. And And I don't know. I don't mind those little screw-ups.
Well, we've talked about this because I played shows with Garbage where I thought I played perfect. Shirley sang perfect. There's not such thing as perfect, but really close. Like we played as good as we can play.
Right.
And I see my friends that go, you were boring tonight.
They said that?
And then we have shows where we're train wrecks, where we just, we'll start a song and F it up and start it over. Shirley goes off on tangents. Duke completely plays a guitar solo in the wrong key. Whatever, just stuff that happens. And then people go, you guys were amazing. So when we have a bad show, people think it's good, and it's the opposite. When we have a great show, people think we're boring.
Yeah, that happened early on, and when we were just playing clubs in Los Angeles, and we'd walk off going, and people would go, wow, so I'm in the air tonight, man. You guys are really good. And we can always tell when we were just like it wasn't our best, and we felt good, and everyone just, kind of quiet, like, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, you were up there. Have you ever heard, what's the worst thing someone said to you? Or what peeves you that you can kind of tell is just like a compliment? Like, hey, you guys look like you're having fun up there. That's the one that gets me.
I think I may have told you this also when we were in the studio. The very first time we went to Europe and Garbage to do press, we sat in this room it was the very first interview, and this guy sat down. It was in Germany somewhere, it was in Amsterdam. It might have been a German interviewer or a Dutch interviewer. I can't remember exactly, but he just sat down and said, "You do yourself no favors with your cheap drum sounds." And we all just sort of stood there, and we're sitting there in a hotel room, and realized it's 11 o'clock in the morning. We're going to do this until 5 p.m. And then he looked at Shirley and said, "You are sexy. I see nothing special."
Oh my God.
And I'm sorry if I'm.
That's a spot on German.
I don't have a very good. That's not PC in my accent there, but
so you're just doing a general kind of James Bond.
The four of us looked at our PR person and said, "Go get a bottle of champagne and Bloody Marys right now." And and then it got better after that for the rest of the day. But
someone just recently came up to us at these shows we were just doing, we were really trying to get our sea legs on and shake the cobwebs out. And someone was like, yeah, I saw that was neat. And it was a full on, and I just had to say it. I said, that is a straight up Kevin Costner Madonna move that got even more known from Kurt and Kim Gordon referencing that in the year the punk broke. And they went, yeah, your show was neat. And I went, that happened.
Neat. Neat is like saying, yeah, your show was nice. It was.
I never ask anybody though.
It was a nice show.
I don't go around going, how was it? How was it? I just kind of like people trip out on us a lot because I can have a conversation. You probably saw this in the studio too, because we had a lot of friends this time over when we're making Widow's Weeds. I can have a conversation with somebody and go, hold on, and then we go and play, and then I come off, and then it takes me a minute, and then we go, okay, so anyway, that.
And you go right back in the conversation.
Yeah, we don't have any like routines, and I feel like we need to get one. I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Do you have any? Does Garbage have any?
Not really. I mean, we years ago on tour we saw, I think it was either Bon Jovi or Journey, and they're all hugging and high-fiving, sort of doing this group hug thing. Mm-hmm. So we sort of take the piss out of ourselves a little bit with that. We all high-five, but we miss each other. That's before we go, let's rock, and we deliberately miss.
That's a good one.
Yeah, we're not.
Shirley never misses.
No, she doesn't, and we're not really big on group hugs. But I'll tell you one thing:
really?
As a band, one of the reasons we're here after 20 years is we do communicate, and as hard as that can be, and
for sure.
And a band that eats together stays together. You eat lunch, you have dinner, you hang out. Yeah. As soon as nobody likes hanging out with anybody, then the band's going south.
Which I have seen that at festivals and stuff with brand new bands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, good luck, everybody. You should. Yeah. Or they'll talk to you about somebody else in the band, and you're like, you should just talk to them.
Yeah. And you can tell they can't. They can't wait to get away.
Well, I guess every band operates differently. So, like, they're more business minded. They're, this is the music they make together, and as long as that show works for them, you know, sometimes that tension might happen. I'll tell you, one thing that's sort of come up when we've been doing interviews about, a lot of things like what did Butch bring to the table and perspective and things like that. And Christopher brought this up, and it didn't even occur to me till after the fact that during the making of this record, in the middle of it, Garbage was doing a whole tour. You were in Garbage Land. So we did 2 halves of it. And Christopher said he really felt it was amazing to be produced by somebody that was really coming from a band perspective. And I never thought, like, how we learned a lot how Garbage really is a full-blown band with democracy, and you play drums in Garbage and things like that. And I didn't think of that before. Does that make sense to you? That's how he felt.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know this. I wear 2 hats. I'm in a band, and I've been in bands my whole life, and then I'm also a music producer. And I think it's good. They both are good. Being a producer and working with other bands is good for Garbage, and being in Garbage is good when I work with other bands. But they're 2 radically different things.
Right.
When I'm working in Garbage, it's my music, our band's music. And
totally.
When I work with you or anybody else, it's your music, and I have to completely switch my brain and make decisions based on what you're doing. So in a way, when we did Widow's Weeds, I felt it a nice breath of fresh air we worked on 4 songs, and we recorded them and did rough mixes, and then
the first half,
and then I went on tour, and we did the version 2.0 20th anniversary, so it was more work because we played the whole record and 10 B-sides that we'd never played before.
10 B-sides?
10 B-sides, yeah. So
whoa,
so it wasn't like we'll rehearse for 3 days and go and play greatest hits. It was a lot of work, but the tour was fun. It was like we all had to really think and concentrate, and it was a one-of-a-kind tour. We're not going to do that tour again. So, and then I immediately came out of that and went right back in the studio with Silversun Pickups, and it felt great.
How do you find that? Can you switch those hats?
I can switch them instantly, and it feels good, like I said, because I have a complete different perspective.
Yeah.
When you listen to music, like I'd be obsessing over, it doesn't matter why, whatever. I'd be playing it over and over. Oh, maybe like the snare drum, the top end, or make Brian's vocal a little drier in the verse, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, you go cold turkey. My brain is in complete different zone, and then all of a sudden I come back and I'm back in, and so I found that refreshing, and I in some ways I think it helped us having that time away, that to me, the second half of the record went quicker. We just sort of, I think we sort of kind of knew what we did on the first 4 tracks. So
the second half of the record felt like when I usually talk about always desiring to work with someone again, like making a second record with someone, because a lot of the ice has been broken. A lot of the communication gets quicker and quicker. And by the second part of making this record, that was happening.
Yeah.
Plus, we had 4 songs that now were fully realized, and we knew that anything now had to hit those. Go beyond them, but they had to really match into these 4 monsters really that we had, and that was really exciting to do.
Yeah, for me, I knew,
Have you done that before, taking a break between?
I don't know if I have. I mean, I've worked on some records that were spread out over time, but usually the band, it's usually we're still working on it. You go in the studio and then maybe you take a week or 2 off and then you go back in the studio. But that's the first time for me where I've had a major a U-turn, where my head had to get into a different space.
Totally. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And talking about the template, I'm curious what you thought of the approach we took, because I don't know if anybody knows this out here yet, but, usually when you go in and record a rock band, you track them live and you basically trying to keep the drums. You record the bass and the guitars and keys and the vocal. And maybe if you're lucky, you can keep all of those. I know some people like to do that. But typically, I'm just trying to make sure the drums sound good and the performances are good. Then everybody goes back and plays on top of that. But after we did demos here at my home studio, I felt like your rhythm guitar playing led the feel of the songs. And so what we did is, for you listeners out there, we recorded each song with Brian starting on acoustic guitar.
Yeah, which is new for me.
And we had the demos, we sort of had templates with some, Chris did some beats and Nicky, there was scratch bass and Joe had keys and stuff. And so we had
designed to be loose.
It was designed to be loose. The demos were very loose and very abstract.
Yeah.
But we had a pretty good template. So then you tracked the acoustic guitar and then electric guitars. And even some of the lead guitars. And then Nicky would do the bass and Joe would do some keys. And I think we even did some vocals before Chris finally, we went to another studio, went to East West in Hollywood, which is an amazing studio. And then we would track the drums.
Amazing studio. And the 2 guys who did
the string players.
String players. Those Gashley Crumb Tinies, those guys, those are amazing.
Yeah, they're good, man.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Matt and Paul, we're giving you guys a shout out because the strings are incredible on the record.
They are. They're so good.
But Chris told me he liked playing drums to a finished guitar performance. Like you're playing, all the rhythms. You guys are a band that does a lot of syncopation and subtle rhythm things. Oh. And that's part of your sound.
Yeah.
And Chris does that on the drums, and I realize he follows a lot of what you're doing on the guitar, as does Nicky. You're, for better or for worse, they're sort of following your playing. And
sorry, everyone.
No, it's a strength. It's a strength. It's one of the things that, for me as a producer, I realize that defines you guys as a band.
Well, you think in movements. Like, I think we don't think in chords, really, as you remember. We didn't. One of my favorite things is we kept renaming things. And so I think at one point you said, well, why don't we add the part that was once the chorus, formerly known as the bridge.
Yeah. Billy Bush and I were like, this is the pre-chorus, this is the chorus of the chorus, this is the
chorus of the chorus.
The chorus of the chorus, because we wasn't quite sure, it wasn't like part A, part B, part C. And,
what was cool about that is you kind of stumbled into our psyche, right? So Widow's Weeds in particular, that song, which you wanted me to put on the record because we were working on something else in this room, and I had this guitar, and I was just going something I had for a while, and you pretty much like Sussudio style were like, "Hey, what is that?" And I said, "Oh, it's just a thing I have. I never really knew what to do with it." And you basically told me, "Well, you got to put it on an album, so go do something with it." And it seemed so natural to me, that song coming out, that I had to fight the notion that it had any worth. Because what I sort of struggle with sometimes is if it's like some songs do come out really easily, and I have to know that they're just as worth something than the ones that are harder. Does that
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sense?
yeah,
So I just thought there was really nothing there. But what the psyche is, like when you just hear the song, it sounds like, yeah, this makes sense. And then when we have to break it down, things get confusing. Like, wait a minute, what's this like?
That's the pre-chorus riff of the chorus of the chorus. Yeah.
And when we were getting deep into it, like when you saw the mathematics, I were like, what? And then you just went, Bo, your daughter, was like, oh, she thinks that song's pretty. And I remember thinking, there you go. That's all we need to know.
All, yeah, it's a lovely riff. That's all you need to know.
The first couple of records we made, we did the way of, we rehearsed, and we went into a studio and recorded. And the last couple with Jackknife, we didn't want to do that, but didn't know how to not do that. I have to come in with a structure of a song that has changes and has things. And because of the way the guitar will move, it will pretty much delineate the parameters of where things are going to go.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like you can't just play anything over it. But in that, not be locked in very much and be able to explore through the studio. And we previously did that with Jackknife, and that's how we sort of learned to do that, so just not be live at all. And then it prepared us for coming in here. And it was a mixture of the two. And I think Christopher, being at the end, it was so lovely for him, because I think a lot of the times he remembers just being like, okay, get in there and then see you later.
Yeah.
It made the drums more musical. So when we were building the songs, the drum shape was already worked on in pre-production, but it was more liquid than solid. And I think it made that part, the rhythm part, Christopher's part in the band, much more involved, because it could move and he could be there and he could alter things as it went on and write things, and it just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the way till sort of the end, which made a lot of sense. So like the certain parameters would happen, but as things went on, we weren't locked into it. And
Yeah.
And so it got into his brain, and you know, Christopher's like, you put it in a system and he'll take a minute to shake his shoulders, but once he gets in there, he'll do it. So like having more time to be with it, I don't know. I think that's really wonderful.
Yeah, you know, this goes back to what we said about when you play a song live and then you want to change what was on the studio album, because in Garbage we always we're a studio band. We write in the studio. Mm-hmm. And it would be great. I've never done this. So I should do a Garbage track where we completely record the whole song, and then I do the drums at the very end.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask you
because
if
then
you've
I know what Shirley's. But I'm going to on the next record.
do
It makes sense now. I know what she's singing. I know her phrasing. I know emotionally what she's going for lyrically.
Because you can mess, you know, like do these little taps on the machine or all that, and get creative with drum sounds. Like I always think it's fun to like not think about your limbs and think what comes out of you drum wise without having to think about how to actually do it. And create something, and then pull it into the realm of the real. But then when you're doing it, I can imagine playing to song in your headphones would be so different. Even in a performance would be so different than just playing to a or a bass, or like even when we track things live and stuff like that, you know, you didn't hear things wonderful in the headphones, so it was like Christopher used to just sort of track to scratchy
Yeah.
And now,
You know, just thinking about it, the only time I've done something close to that was on Strange Little Birds, the song Empty. Mm-hmm. We tracked that to a tempo, I don't remember what it was, like 115 or 120, whatever the tempo was, and we recorded the guitar. Shirley did the vocals.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel like it had much feel swing-wise. Mm-hmm. And we had been working at the studio where we worked at with you guys, Red Razor, Billy Bush's studio in Atwater.
Great place.
And we came back from a day, and Duke and I were here, and I said, let's just play Empty. Mm-hmm. So I had my drum set up, my DW kit, and Duke plugged in an amp. And I said, I have a click at the start, and I'll turn that off, and let's just do 3 takes. Mm-hmm. So we played just guitar and drums. It sounded terrible. You know, we had a couple of mics up, but I recorded it in the Pro Tools, right. And then I stopped and I looked and go, okay, I'm starting out at whatever, 115. In the verse, I slowed down like a little bit, a couple of BPM. In the chorus, I sped up. All the drum fills are like way faster. Like, you know, I mean, I'm not constrained to a click track. So, so then
there's something to that.
So I listened to the take, And I wrote down all the sections where this tempo is good here, this tempo is good here, this tempo is good here. And then I went in the next day and I gave it to Billy Bush. And he had to re-edit the song to the new tempo track.
Billy Bush is our engineer, Butch's right-hand man, basically.
Yeah, Billy Bush is awesome, man.
He is awesome.
He's like a fifth member of Garbage. He's been with us for so long now. He knows how we think. He knows our DNA.
Psychically linked to you.
Yeah.
Because at one point, and this is one of your amazing tricks, there's a song playing in the background, and maybe you and I are talking about film scoring or something, all the different culture vulture things many of things we talked about in the studio. And then it was in the background and you were, hold on. And you kind of looked at Billy. So you almost were already hearing something that to me was sort of in the background. And you said, Billy, I want this particular thing. And he went, oh yeah, I already did that. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow. That's when I could feel the experience in the room.
Yeah, we do have a sixth
Big time.
sense. Now, we've done so many records with Garbage and also with so many other different people. And it's cool. It's great to work with someone like that because
He's amazing.
You don't have to worry about stuff like that. You just sort of get on the same plane in a way. So
I felt like everybody in the band, like everybody gelled really quickly on making this record. You and Billy and all of us. It was pretty fast, and it makes it just so you can make these intense records that have a lot of emotional range, but you don't have to be glum about it. Like you can work really hard and get really frustrated, but still be having a pretty joyous time doing it. You know?
I mean, God forbid, man. Records should be fun to make. They should be fun. That's why I keep doing it. When
they should be.
When making a record becomes a vibe crush, then you don't want to do it anymore, man.
Yeah, we try to always keep that in the front of our mind.
It's
like understand what this is really.
You had met Billy before, though.
Mm-hmm. I met you both.
We were working on a Garbage track for a Record Store Day single.
Yeah.
And I came up with some music here called The Chemicals, and we wanted to do a collaboration. And I ran into you at Hugo's.
That's right, a taco spot.
Yeah.
Which we've known each other before.
We've met each other before, because I talked to you years ago.
And
neighbors, and I knew you when you were first signed to
Danger Bird,
and you live in the hood. Mm-hmm. But we never really worked together. And then, and so we're getting tacos, and I just blurted out, hey, Brian, you want to sing in a Garbage song? You go, yeah, man, let's do it. So literally a week later, you were in the studio, and we did the song "The Chemicals,"
which I just heard on Seattle radio station. We just did an acoustic with a station I love called KEXP that have been so sweet and kind to our band forever. And actually, we're involved in getting our band known anywhere because they were playing a song from our EP while we were making our first record on that station, and then that kind of grew from there.
Cool.
And Cheryl Waters played The Chemicals when we were there.
Cool, yeah.
It sounded really good.
When we played the Shrine here in LA a couple weeks ago, you were there, and we talked about we should just get Brian out and play The Chemicals, but we attempted to play it in rehearsal, and it sounded terrible. We'd never played it before, and we already had so much other material we were doing.
No, don't worry about it.
We can't quite get it together, but maybe someday, man.
Yeah, I can pull that one out, I think.
But
I don't know what I'd do with my hands. I can't wait to just be...
No, you can play guitar too, man.
I'd have to. Just my hands would be floating.
The cool thing about that track is it's Brian and Shirley sing a duet all the way through.
Yeah.
But Brian sings the high part and Shirley sings the low part. Because usually the dude sings the low part and the lady sings the high part, right?
A lot of people think I sound like a girl, which I love.
Yeah, so
that's my favorite.
But it's just your voices sound great together.
No one thinks Shirley sounds like a boy, right? Nobody thinks that.
No, they don't.
I had such a good time making that with you guys, and everybody was there, all of Garbage, really. That was the first thing in my brain to think about. This would be so amazing if Silversun could land in here, if this was where our next record would go. And I thought about that the first couple of days we were in the studio, like, we're actually doing it, Because I knew I went back to the band, and I just was saying, you guys would love this experience. It was really wonderful. And I'm so glad that's how it happened. But that reminds me, the Hugo's thing reminds me of the fact that there was talk about you working on this album. And there was a dialogue, because I said, I think it would be great if Butch could do this record. And management was emailing. And as I was looking at one of these email chains, I realized after a week, Butch doesn't know about this. And so I texted you do you want to make a record this summer? And you said, yeah, man, it could be fun. That's what happened.
Yeah, sometimes it is. I've realized this over the years. It's good to talk to the artist directly.
Oh man, that's the only way we do things.
All respect to management and publishers and labels. If you just go right to the artist, there's a good chance it'll happen.
Just come over.
So let me ask you a little bit. Just what are your plans? You guys going on tour this summer, right? You're gearing up for.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff will be coming up. We'll be sort of in and out. Popping in and out of like promotion stuff and this and that. And then I think we'll be on and off all year, and then we will do a full-blown production thing probably at the beginning of next year.
Yeah, cool.
So we'll be pretty much playing from now for a couple of years.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity.
As those things go, yeah.
We have to literally go to a party
right now. How cool is that? We do a podcast for Talkhouse, then we get to go to a Silversun's.
I could talk with you forever.
Silversun's party.
This is nothing.
Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
And thank you, Butch Vig and Brian Aubert. Hope the party was awesome.
Why weren't we invited?
We got to move to LA, man. Listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, definitely check out our previous show featuring Garbage's Shirley Manson in conversation with Tori Amos. Also, Josh, you mentioned in the beginning you did a very cool piece with Butch pretty recently.
Yeah, there's a written piece called Crushingly Loud, Tales from Smart Studios, in which Butch talked to me about a bunch of records that he produced, and that was all to do with the Smart Studios documentary that came out a couple of years ago.
I actually interviewed him on Pitchfork Radio when that dropped. He is a very thoughtful producer, I have to say.
And such a chill dude.
It's the Wisconsin. Today's episode was recorded by none other than legendary producer, a.k.a. the Nevermind guy, Butch Vig himself in Los Angeles.
How many points are we giving him on this thing?
It was co-produced by Mark Yoshizumi, and the Talkhouse theme song was written and performed by The Range.
Subscribe to the Talkhouse Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and check us out on any and all social media, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We got them all.
Till next week, I'm Elia Einhorn.
I'm Josh Modell.
Peace. And alt rock.
Oh well, whatever. Never mind.
Everybody, hold on.
Oh, is that your pizza?
We're going to take an interlude here while Brian noodles for a second. Let's see, what did I say here?
Okay, now Butch is going. Butch house looks like Hogwarts. His staircases move. All the pictures move.